was working with demons. Like, I was talking with them like, hey, you give me her, I'll give you an abortion. It worked out every time. I hate to say it, but I've got 10 abortions on my record.
Welcome to God's Voice Daily. I'm your host, Vladimir, and this is the channel where I share daily phone calls with people from around the world who've had real supernatural encounters with Jesus, angels, demons, and everything in between. Some of these calls go on to become full episodes on our main show called God's Voice Today, but here you will hear them raw and unfiltered, just the way they happened. So without any further ado, let's dive into today's featured call. Enjoy.
Hi, Vlad.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going really good. I'm so glad to be able to talk with you.
Hey, thank you so much for taking my call early. I'm a little early, so I figured you really get in trouble for being early, right? There are cases.
No. Actually, I grew up with a mom who was always late, so I'd rather be early than late.
Well, listen, man, how do you pronounce your name?
Tayzer. It's like the stun gun.
I was gonna say Tayzer, but I'm like, that kind of sounds like the stun gun. But that's why I wanted you to say it first. Okay, so it is Tayzer. Tayzer, yes. Cool. You probably go by Tay, right? Anybody calls you Tay?
No, I don't.
No, okay.
No, actually, growing up in elementary school, it was always mispronounced. Like, the teachers would look at the first couple letters, like the first few letters, the T-A-Y, and then look at the E-R at the end. They'd be like, Taylor. And I'm just like, oh, shoot.
They'd get lazy. Well, it's interesting because my full name is actually Vladimir, but most people call me Vlad. But Vlad in my country is a totally different name. It's short for Vladislav. And so a lot of times when I talk to people from my neck of the woods, they're like, you're not Vlad. Why are people calling you Vlad? I'm like, well, it's too much to explain. So I go by Vlad here in America. Even my own wife calls me Vlad. But if you get technical, it's a totally different name. So Vladimir would
Vladimir.
be. But anyway, I go by Vlad, V, Vladdy, Vladsky, Broski. Anyway, well, Tayzer, I'd love to hear your testimony. Sounds like you have a powerful one.
I'll start off at the beginning. I didn't even write this one down. Like, I wrote everything down because my wife was like, do that so you don't lose track of where you're at.
No, I want it to be raw. I want it to be raw. Just let's see where it goes.
Well, so 3 years before I was born, my dad was listening to the radio in Colorado Springs. Mm-hmm. And he heard on the radio that the police department was getting a new batch of tasers. He's like, Tayzer. He told my mom that he thought it'd be an awesome name. She messed with the spelling, so that's why it's Tayzer.
Okay.
And so that was 3 years before I was born. And so growing up, they were doing all right in their marriage. They're hippie parents. Dad's an alcoholic hippie, lots of drugs, and that comes from them. About the age of 3, mom and dad are having this point where they're having affairs. And so they split up. I remember Dad coming in one day, and I pointed to Mom's bedroom. I couldn't verbally speak just yet, not fully, and because I knew something was wrong. And so they ended up splitting up. And I remember Mom put me and my brother in the car, and we left. And I thought at that moment it was just like something really bad was happening. Mm-hmm. Well, at that point they were separating for good. Mom to this day still hates my dad. May he rest in peace now. He just passed away earlier this year. And so, so Mom took us to her mom's, which was my granny. My mom's mom was my granny. I love her. May she rest in peace too. Which Granny was always one of those that she instilled Jesus. She was all about Jesus. She went to church every Sunday. She talked about Jesus, and she was like a representative of Christ for fact out here on earth. And so I was exposed to Jesus growing up. And then mom's out and doing like finding jobs and stuff, and she had a boyfriend and moved us in with him, and which went all right. I didn't like him at all. Like, I was very cold toward him. I didn't speak to him. I didn't look at him. I acted like he just wasn't there at all. He would say something to me, and I'd just be like, did you hear something? And trying to drive him nuts to either give me a reason to get him kicked out or to leave, or just for him just to up and leave. Well, it ended up being that he got kind of upset about it, and mom ended up getting a different boyfriend. I tried the same thing on him because I thought, well, if I can do this to any guy mom is with, she'll go back to dad. Well, with this last one, she sat me down at one point. She's like, why are you doing this? I said, so you can go back with dad. She said, it's not going to work out that way. I can't go back to him. And so it kind of, because she finally dug down why I was doing it, and and it got exposed. I was like, all right, I'll tolerate him at least. And, but come to find out years later, like, he'd be the father figure that, like I tell them, he's the father that I needed, where I'm the son that my dad needed. But in my childhood, I was about 7, 8. I was at my dad's one night, or for the weekend, because I got to weekend visits with him. And I thought I saw some pills on the table. I thought he missed a pill. And he was knocked out on the couch, drunk. I popped the pill, like I kind of put it in his mouth. I was like, Dad, you forgot your medicine, take your pill. He ended up swallowing it. Next thing I know, his eyes turned black. It was a Viagra. And he was absolutely drunk. And I lost my innocence that night. Just to put it that way. From that point on, like, it's like the demons of lust pinpointed me. I noticed that my granny's brother was molesting his daughters. I noticed, and then family friends' daughters at that too. I noticed that those and the sons of that part of the family were passing them around too. And so it became, and I found my dad's pornography stash, and then I found my mom's boyfriend's pornography stashes. And then at 12, I got a laptop. And that became an everyday thing. And to the point that the only way that my mom really could think of to try to slow me down on that dark path was to be like, well, if you don't quit pulling your chain, it's going to fall off. And, but yeah, no, I went down that dark slope, and I'm going to expose it because it's the door that's leading to the darker places for a lot of people.
Absolutely.
The anime porn, it opens up the doors to the child pornography and bestiality. And I fell victim to the bestiality one. And so as I progressed in my teenage years, it ended up being that I was looking for those fixes now in reality, because I had seen, at this point, by the time I was in high school, I had seen basically everything there was on the pornography side, because I was that involved, that deep into it. And I had a couple girlfriends my senior year, and then right after my senior year, that actually went with it. And right after high school, I was working with demons. And like, I was talking with them like, hey, you give me her, I'll give you an abortion. And so, yeah, abortions are directly connected to the demonic, because it worked out every time. And I hate to say it, but I've got 10 on my record, about 10 abortions. And I'm thankful to where I'm at today, because it's no longer me. But where it all led me was that in 2018, I had a stolen motorcycle. I was so high on meth, I didn't feel high anymore. And then I wasn't able to re-up on my meth because my dealer was out. And so I was like, let me get my speed a different way. And so I was driving the motorcycle 80 miles an hour in town. I heard the voice of God tell me to slow down. I said, all right, but only by 15 miles an hour, because you're going to have to do the rest. So I dropped down to 65. I hit a curb, no helmet on, 65 miles an hour straight to concrete. I had a fractured skull, blood, air pockets, and clotted arteries inside my skull, plus all the road rash and different bones that broke. 12 hours later, after being in the hospital, the blood, air pockets, and clotted arteries were gone inside my skull. And I can't do anything but thank God. I know I had a lot of prayer over me too. Grandma prayers, they work for sure.
Those are powerful.
Yeah. And so after being released from the hospital, I'm arrested, of course. They got me for a DUI on cannabis, even though I was way more high on the meth. And that was far more greater in my system. And then they also got me on the stolen motorcycle. And so after I get out of jail, I bounced a couple of coworkers' houses, and because I was working at Domino's. And then one of the coworkers pays for me to go back to my home state, because I left Kentucky to where I stole the motorcycle to be able to hold on to the motorcycle. And so I went from Illinois back to Kentucky and to spend some time with my family for the Christmas of 2018. But when I was there, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel the love. I didn't feel the family bond. I didn't feel any of it. I felt isolated and alone. And so my mom paid for me to come back up next January, and so I can serve out my probation. So I came back up to Illinois and started serving up my probation, except I didn't have anywhere to go. I was at a men's shelter for a little bit, then a crack house for another time, donating plasma just to supply the crack house with crack. And that finally ended when I just wanted to smoke some pot at that point. I was tired of the crack. Like I say, crack to me is only a 15-minute high, whereas cocaine's like a 2-hour and meth's like an all-night. At that point, I wanted just some pot just to feel better. Because my mentality after the motorcycle wreck was like I got reset almost in the fact that I was like in this learning state, like how children, like at the ages of like 3, let's say, they're always just learning, just trying to learn this stuff. It was like my mind was always trying to learn these things again. And that mentality stayed until like about 23, 24. But after me and this other dude left the crack house so we could smoke some pot, we moved out of it. We were like, we're done with that. I was living on the streets, doing drugs and any drugs that came to me until I got to the point I was tired of chasing the highs. I surrendered to God at the public library. I was like, all right, God, you've saved my life countless times, because I know all those times that I should have been shot, which I'll wrap back around to that, or the motorcycle accident that should have killed me. You saved me. So I need your plans to start coming together, and sooner rather than later for me, because I'm tired of this life. Within a month, I met the woman who is now my wife. And, really, it was me and her daughter, because her daughter's my age, that were talking and wanted me to come over to their house. And her mom was like, she said, her daughter said, my mom will talk to you about God. I was like, that's all right. I'll talk to her about God. And I didn't have any interest in the daughter when I saw her. I was like, no, I'm not interested. But the mom, I was like, I feel like I know her from somewhere. Well, to bring it back to when I was right before I was molested, I had a vision or a prophecy from God. It wasn't really a vision, it was a prophecy. So I asked God, I was like, I told him, I only want to be married one time. my life. What's the name of the wife that I'll have? And he told me her name's Carol. And that's exactly who I'm married to.
Wow.
And I'm busting my butt to keep this marriage working, because the years of porn really grew a mentality that I have to really work Romans 12:2 on, transforming my mind and not letting it be conformed to the patterns of the ways of this world anymore. And because that was about half of my life, I was deep into porn. So it's a completely mental shift for that. But when we met, she ended up taking me off the streets and let me live with her. We got engaged a couple months later. And then in 2020, October of 2020, we had our twins.
Wow.
I've got my son and my daughter.
Amazing.
And,
I'm a twin. I have an identical twin brother, by the way. So it's going to be an interesting life.
Yeah, it is. But they're my pride and my joy. I love them.
Tayzer, it's hard to believe just listening to your story that you went through all of that. Just, I don't hear the same person through your voice. You're a totally different person now.
Yeah, I look back at my past. I'm like, man, I was a monster at one point.
But it's interesting where it all started. I'm telling you, every conversation I have with people that have similar paths, it starts with a traumatic event that happens early in life, usually through molestation. Right. And it sets children on the path. It's like demons enter them or something.
Yeah.
And then they just reproduce.
It sets them on a path of destruction, yeah.
Wow, man, so many questions. I'm curious. You know, it's interesting. You're talking about pornography and because like some people that I know in my community, you know how they have those like police officers set up these like fake operations where they catch predators. And some of the people in our community, there's one person in our community that was like an amazing parent and everything. I don't know about amazing, but just like a normal family, right? And then he got caught in one of those operations and going after a 13-year-old. And I remember talking to my wife about it. It's like, man, it all starts with people just dabble in pornography, and then it's not enough, and they go further. And then I guarantee you that's how it all started. Pornography is a big entry point for all these people. And even the statistics, like just hearing how many pastors are into that.
Right.
And what kind of fruit it's producing. But you said something about working with demons. Like, did you actually hear their voices?
So as a kid, I could hear God's voice and I'd talk with him. There's even times he'd speak to me through my own mouth, and we'd have full-blown conversations. I'd be walking through either my yard, my grandma's yard when I was mowing, or I was in my space, my own little space, my secret place, basically, with God, and I'd be able to hear his voice. So I've been spiritually keen on to be able to hear.
What did God tell you?
We would talk about my life. So, for instance, there was a youth pastor when I was in middle school. And because I went to youth group a little bit in middle school, he said, this is the Baptist church. And he was like, well, I don't usually do this kind of thing, but I feel like God's really saying directing me strong on this. And so he's like, how many of you guys know who Jesus is? We all raise our hand. Does Jesus know who you are? And he said, don't raise your hand for this, but if you have to think about it, if there's a doubt in your mind, when you're by yourself tonight, introduce yourself to him like you would a friend. I got home that night. I stuck up my hand. I said, hi, Jesus. My name's Tayzer. And I could hear him say, I know who you are. A lot of work to do in your life.
Wow. What did it sound like? Yeah. Was it more of like your own thought, or you actually heard his voice?
It's kind of like it was in between my ear and my brain, almost like it came from that location. Because it didn't come, I didn't hear it through my ear, but it wasn't my own thought.
Wow. And do you hear him today? Is it something that you only heard it then?
Yes, I can still hear him today. Actually, I'll talk with him almost every day. If I miss a day, it's usually because I'm having a bad day, and I usually wrap up towards the end of the day, like, all right, Lord, we didn't have our daily, like, just talk through the day kind of thing.
Well, that's one thing that a lot of people ask. You know, they love listening to these testimonies. They're like, man, I love the before and the transformation, all this stuff. But sometimes people say, like, what, practically speaking, what does Christian life look like going forward? Like for you now, you say you talked to him. What does your Christian walk with the Lord look like? Like how much time do you spend with the Lord, Bible, all
the
that?
bad wasn't quite over yet, though, because it wasn't just all peaches and rainbows after I met this woman that's now my wife.
Tell me more.
Kids. Because during her pregnancy, I relapsed on porn. And she didn't find out for almost 6 months. And so that created a thing. I sought deliverance. I sought counseling. But over the course of these past few years, it's been relapse, few months of good, clean, relapse, couple months of good, clean, relapse. And it started becoming like every 2 months. So almost every month it would be a relapse, even though like I was trying these different things and trying to figure it out. This last time, well, beginning of this year, it seemed to be going good. Everything is going great. I'm like, all right, we got this. I lost my dad. Actually, my wife's car got stolen, and then I lost my dad. And that he passed away February 18th.
Sorry to hear that.
And I'm the one handling everything around that, from the $4,000 cremation to the estates. And because he was in Iowa, I'm in Illinois, my brother's in Indiana, and the rest of the family's in Kentucky. And so I'm the one, because I'm closest, handling everything. And because at the end of his life, I was the only one that was really hanging out with him and stuff. But I will say I know where he's at, because in the book of Romans, if you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord and Savior and believe in your heart, then you will inherit the kingdom of heaven. You will be saved. Growing up, he hated God because the loss of his first 2 kids to SIDS. And but then, second or third visit to the last, I asked him, like, who is Jesus Christ to you? He said, he's my Lord and Savior. Or I asked him, is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior? And he said, yes. And so he confessed. And so I know where he's at, because I've prayed most of my life on a way to get him to heaven, because he's always mentally put himself in torment subconsciously, yeah.
Wow. Well, it's interesting. Well, before we get into the conclusion of the story that you were talking about, but it's interesting about your dad, that even though that happened early on in your life, that you still fought for him, that you prayed for him, because you understood that it wasn't really him. It was, you said his eyes turned black, right? So I'm assuming something took over him.
Yeah. The only time I've seen that was demonic possession, like full demonic possession.
Whew. Well, how did it go for you then? So you relapsed during your stressful time, right? Usually that's when people relapse, right? When things are just chaotic and
right.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I had never, prior to the pregnancy, really thought about like deliverance or the casting out of demons.
That's what I was going to ask. Full-blown deliverance. Yeah.
And so I went through it, and afterwards, so I carried my lust demons with me into the relationship, is what I meant to say with that. And I didn't know that. I wasn't thinking about that. I thought it was just me being normal. Like, okay, like walking through Walmart and I see a woman and I check her out, even though I'm with a woman I'm trying to marry. And that was a sign for my life that, hey, there's something else going on here. But she would confront me about it. But I was like, no, I know, it's all right. And she would just kind of like do her little eye roll and like, kind of thing. but she wasn't. She was taking note of it mentally, and so after like so many relapses, it wasn't until this year, after I handled everything with Dad, it was the next month, after doing his eulogy and his at his funeral, that in April I had a relapse again. The stress was just too much for me, and this is the last relapse I had. Well, I went to the hotel. I was pretty sure that at this point, after all these relapses, my life was done. There's probably no working it out with my wife. And I had my son for a moment for a couple of days at the hotel with me, and it devastated me. I was like, I can't let this be. I can't let him go through the emotions that I went through with my parents being separated. I can't let him experience that pain, that hurt. And I can see where my dad got a lot of his mental torment from, because he only got to see us on the weekends. And sometimes maybe it was months in between. It's super hard on a son and on a child and a father.
Yeah, the guilt, the shame, the condemnation. Absolutely.
Right. And so it ended up being that I was like, all right, I got to do what I need to do. All right, so I went and called a couple buddies. I was like, hey, you guys got any work for me? And they both did. And I'm still working with one of them because I'm more of a general contractor. And so that way I can try to sustain myself. Well, it ended up being that I'm trying to work things out. So I've been back home for a little over a month now. And I came back towards the end of April, so going on, 2 months. I was at the hotel for about a week, and that was what I needed, because I was like, all right, this is my breaking point. There's something that's got to change. My cousin called me up, who I never talked to before. He said that my dad told him that we should talk, and I was like, well, my dad told me we should talk too. We just hadn't reached out yet. And he's been through everything that I've been through, but he's on the right path. He's following God, and he's got his family, and he's got a pretty nice life. And so me and talk every day. So he's like, anything I need to help. I said, well, we got to talk nightly, every day, because that'll keep me in check and keep me accountable, because knowing that I have to report to you. And I've been heeding his advice. Before this, I was never one to really work out. Like, I go to work and stuff, and that's how I build my breakthroughs and stuff. Because even though I was self-conscious a lot, because in high school I was heavy set until I went anorexic and lost my weight. And then I just balanced out over the years, and so now I'm doing my daily workouts every morning. And the way that I see it is, it's crucifying my flesh, because I'm wearing it out to the point of exhaustion, and I'm pushing through the rest of the day. And he showed me some vitamins, like L9. It's perfect for dopamine deficiency, and it helps with mental focus. So it's a perfect vitamin for me to take. And then magnesium glycinate. That way my body can relax after going through all the stress. And then I go to Celebrate Recovery. It's a wonderful place to go for any hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And so that I would say, if you got any more questions, please do ask.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you say kind of like this concept, exhaust the body to tame the mind, so to speak. Sometimes it's it does help, but I do still think that like a full deliverance, finding somebody, or I think some people just get delivered by, I know this one person just reading the Bible, staying in the Word, fasting. This one lady I recently interviewed, in fact, later today, at 5 p.m. this afternoon. I'll be interviewing her for the main channel. But she was like an addict, just everything you can imagine and more. And Angel Gabriel appeared to didn't appear to her, but in her thoughts, he said, "I'm Angel Gabriel. This is the first and last time you'll ever hear from me." And it says, in order to fight these demons, you have to, I think it was like a dry fast for 3 days, start at the midnight. He gave her specific instructions and then the 4-day water fast after dry fast. But the interesting thing, what she said, when she did that, because there are strong holds, in the Bible talks about certain demons you can't cast it out unless you prayer and fasting.
Right, with prayer and fasting.
Well, she fasted for 3 days dry fast. And she said she heard audibly, she heard chains falling off of her.
Well, so I've been doing daily, 24 to 20 hour fast. What I mean by that is water only. Mm-hmm. I'll either eat only dinner, and some days I might eat lunch and dinner. But the other time than that, it's nothing but water.
Yeah, lifestyle of prayer and fasting is the best way.
Right.
We were just talking this morning. I do these prayer calls every single day in our community. We have a completely free community at family.godsvoiceday.com. But I lead these Monday through Friday at 6:15 a.m. And that's kind of like the main conversation was that, man, the lifestyle of prayer and fasting is like the best. Kind of like you become like a lean athlete, right? Christianity is like a full contact sport. And you can't afford.
Well, it's Paul said it in I believe it's 1 Corinthians 9:27. It's either 9:27 or 6:27. He talks about I discipline my body so I do not become disqualified after preaching.
Ooh. Yeah, and discipline, taking care of your temple. Sometimes, like you were saying, a lot of times it's kind of like creating an environment where, for example, parasites in your body, right? If you create an environment where parasites thrive, why are you surprised that they're there? Same thing for demons. If you create an environment where they thrive, and I think just being wise, like you have this temple and you got to take care of it. And there's certain things you got to do, kind of keep the environment in such a way to where you don't put yourself in a situation where you're tempted, right? It's kind of like, I think for me, I'm kind of like you, working out is one of those things where like when I hit the gym, when I work out, when I discipline my body, watch what I eat, I have more energy. I'm less likely to, when you have low energy, when you're depleted of energy and everything else, like you're more likely to do something you don't want. And so it's like an athlete. It's a marathon. It's not a race. It's like a race. I mean,
that's exactly how Paul was put in that chapter I was talking about.
Yeah, you got to be diligent, and it's not just spiritual. It's all of it. What you listen to, what you eat, what goes in through your ears, through your eyes, through your mouth. It all matters. It's like
I'm extremely cautious with what I put in my ears and my eyes. Like if it's not Christian music, I don't listen to it. And it's got to be like so. My favorite shows to watch is like Little House on the Prairie and Highway to Heaven. And I started in a little bit of Leave It to Beaver, so old school shows, because a lot of the newer stuff is getting way too like immodest or sexualized.
No, that's a good point. And it's interesting because a lot of people, they get the whole fasting from food and but man, sometimes having like information fast. My dad was my dad was an underground pastor in the USSR, like family of 9 kids. I come from a family of 9 kids, huge family. Grew up very poor, shared toothbrushes, had to take turns to go outside to play because we didn't have enough shoes for everybody. Grew up just persecuted. My dad constantly was written up, and he's still alive. He lives in Columbus, Ohio right now. But it's something he told me, which was interesting. He said that when he, back in those days, like they would have dreams and visions, like God would tell them where to go for church service, and they would all show up. And sure enough, that's kind of how they were spirit led, right? And he said back then, the best, like when he was really in tune with the Holy Spirit, he said when he didn't consume a lot of information. He said, I didn't read newspapers, and he says how he was telling me how information is just a distraction. When like some people, like they know so much what's going on around the world, all these things. It's like, man, if we knew that much about the Word of God, how much more we're worried about things we can't control. But it's like, so on one of the recent videos you've done where the guy is talking about like September 2025,
that kind of put that in perspective for me. Like, hey, we are in the end days. It's not like I might not have another 10, 20 years. I got to focus on what I need to be doing today.
Well, and a lot of people got offended by that. And again, like he could be way off, but what it did to me is like, Tayzer, what if it's that close?
Right. Really, it truly like.
What if you lived your life knowing that, it could be that close? It would be, if you knew a race was coming up, you'd be more in shape for it, right?
Right.
So it's kind of like, to me, some people got offended by that video, and I'm like, right or wrong. What I got out of that video is that, man, it's all like, we're in the game, like, EA Sports, you're in the game. It's like, we're in it. This is not time to just chew bubble gums.
So one of the conversations I had with God yesterday, and because I was thinking about like that whole thing with September 2025, and God's like, what if it wasn't then? What if I postponed it? And I said, well, if you did, then I know that it's coming up still soon.
It's that close. So, I mean, it's around the corner. My father always just like, Vlad, it's very close. And again, I don't know how close it is, but when you live your life knowing that it's very close. Because a lot of times people's like, oh, Jesus comes. But when somebody puts a date like that, it's just like, whoa, but what if that guy's right? And it shouldn't bring fear. It's just more like, man, if I knew there was a race coming up,
a focus, right?
I'd be a lot more focused.
Right.
Because how many people do we know that don't know the Lord? And it's even like, it forces you to gut check your own life. Like, where am I falling short? You check your heart.
Like, so every night I say a prayer and I'm like, Lord, help all of your people with the needs that they need by answering the prayers that they need to be said over them, and then help the lost ones on their journey to you. And I'll say that exactly, more or less, maybe change the words a little bit, but and I say that every night because I know I've been one of those people that's been lost before, and I know that I've needed a lot of prayers before, and God knows what they all are.
Man, the worst feeling when you're in that moment and just helpless and hopeless, no hope, no vision, no dream, just feeling the lowest of the low. And you can relate to that. A lot of people listening can relate to that. And the truth is, we don't have to live this way. We don't.
Vlad, I will say, on YouTube, my channel is Enlow Ministries, ENLOW Ministries, plural. So, and then on there, I have my testimony. It's got photos too with it. If you ever want to check it out, I will say it's going to tell you, like, you have to be 18 to watch it because I talk about my self-harm in it. And so they flagged it for that topic. So,
well, I'll make sure, Tayzer, I'll make sure that I link it in the description below. So for sure, for everybody, hopefully I will remember that, because a lot of times people call me out on it. Vlad, you said you were going to link it. Where is it? Because I personally edit every video on this channel. I did on the main channel for a while until I finally just couldn't do it. And I have my twin brother helping me. And now I started this daily. And so sometimes I just run through them so much. Like today, I had started editing an episode this morning. Only had an hour to put it together.
Well, because I will say, if you missed it, I would comment on the video.
There you go.
Link, so.
Burden's on you now. Well, we'll definitely have to include it. Well, listen, man, Tayzer, I appreciate you share. I know it's not easy to talk about, especially the sensitive things that you're talking about. I mean, who wants to talk about that? But man, people watching this video right now, they have a testimony and they're not sharing it because they're afraid of what people are thinking about them. And I applaud you for not caring about that and caring more about the souls that can listen to this and be transformed. There's so many comments that I'm getting that are negative, but there's so many more that people are like, man, because I watched this video and now my walk with the Lord. Actually, I just saw a comment yesterday, the other day. I forget which episode it was that they watched, but they said they used to be addicted to porn, and after they watched the video, they stopped watching porn. They said their relationship with their spouse just flourished. Now they're doing so much better. And I mean, if one video can, like, people listening to your video, if it helps just one soul, man, it was worth it.
Right. That's what matters.
It was worth it. Well, listen, man, thank you so much.
A few years ago, I baptized my youngest brother. Even I gave the message, and he was baptized.
Look at the fruit of all that. And I love the
Right.
fact that you were so concerned about your father that you asked him the question that you asked him, which forced him to say what he said. To proclaim, you know, what if it was the only moment he did say it, and it's just like it made him think in that moment, go deep into his heart.
And I thank the Lord, because I've had visions of Dad in heaven saying, like, I don't know how you got me here. This is something that you did. I said, I told him, because I prayed for you to get here. And God led me on what I needed to do for you to be able to come here.
Man, and you know, can you imagine? Like, I can only imagine what his testimony was like what his story, how he got to that point. I'm sure there was something happened.
Single mom with 7 kids. Grew up in the streets, basically doing the street things.
So he didn't know anybody. He's just learning on the job kind of thing, and you know, all the trauma. It's like compound interest, right?
Heavy drug addict. Actually, when I was cleaning out his house, I found all kinds of needles and drugs and stuff.
Wow. So many hurting people. Well, Tayzer, I appreciate you so much, man. That's amazing. You don't even sound like the same person. You know, it's hard to imagine that you went through all of that. You sound totally different, free. Good for you, man.
Oh, yeah. Praise the Lord all the way.
Amen. To him the glory. Well, we'll stay in touch, Tayzer. Appreciate it.
All right. I appreciate it.
Thanks for watching. If this call caught your attention, wait until you see what's coming up next. It should be on the screen right now. Go ahead and click on that video, and I'll see you there.